Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over this week's epic weapons cache. In this week's epic weapons cache we do see a couple juicy weapons, the first one being Dr. Stevens' Energized Tire Iron. This weapon was part of an event where you had to complete a stash, I believe, and you would get it. So 35% attack, 35% defense, bonus AP, so like Michonne's Wakizashi, receive 20% AP at the beginning of each wave. This third slot cannot be crafted. This is very specific and it's a special weapon for yellow weapons. The only type of weapon you can craft this specific ability on is a blue or a tough weapon. So this is very unique. It definitely helps with some turn 1 attack teams. Like I run a weapon like this on my Arav actually, which is pretty potent. The fourth slot on this weapon gain crit equal to half of the amount of AP you have. On a tune like Arav, this wouldn't matter because you're rushing every single turn. So this would only affect basic attacks. So if you had a multi-hit tune that did basic attacks, so Tyler for example, but again he would have to do basic attacks on his rush, this would be pretty potent. I do like that there's attack and defense, so you could go either way. You could make this a very defensive weapon. This type of weapon would actually be kind of perfect for Jackie on a defensive team because it already has the defense. You could swap the attack to be AP, and for the last slot you could put on fast healing, for example, because with this type of weapon you can get Jackie to rush on the first turn for your defensive team. And if she rushes on the first turn, it means she's applying minus 60% attack to all attacking tunes. So it basically neuters the attack and gives you enough time as the defender to kind of waste time, especially in war. So this weapon is very, very nice. It's crafted pretty well for being a set weapon, and I kind of like that you can go either offensive, so like an Arav, or you could go defensive like a Jackie. This is definitely what I would call a desirable weapon overall, especially if you've had trouble pulling Michonne's Wakizashi. So moving on to the next weapon, we do have another kind of offensive weapon with 20% AP to self. Now this is something we can actually craft, but it is pretty nice to have the top effect on the third slot. So with Angel's Savage Sawed-Off Shotgun, 35 crit, a huge bonus to AP when attacking, bonus AP plus attack, receive 20% attack for 2 turns, and 20% AP at the beginning of each wave. This third slot again helps with turn 1 attack teams, or I guess even turn 1 defensive teams if we think about it. It all depends on what your desired effect actually is. Now with this last slot, again, not sure why there's so much crit stuff going on with this fourth slot on a lot of the bound weapons, or not bound weapons, but the weapons you can pull off of the epic weapons cache. So the fourth slot is increase the crit multiplier by 20%. So this is the amount of crit damage that you're going to apply to the enemy. And it doesn't work well if you're rushing a lot and you're not using a tune that again uses basic attacks on their rush, because each of those attacks could be a critical hit. So it's a little weird, I guess. Like it does have plus 35 crit chance. So you do have a decent chance of actually producing a critical hit on the enemy. So the fourth slot would come into play a lot. But whenever you're using a tune that rushes a lot, it's just never going to work well. It's never going to come into play. You're never going to use this effect. And I'd rather have an effect in this last slot that can be used consistently to help me produce a positive result. Now, the last weapon in the epic weapons cache is probably my least favorite weapon of the 3. Moira's sturdy aluminum baseball bat, 30% HP, 15% defense. Third slot, when attacking, a better chance to cause minus 40% defense for 3 turns to the enemy. And the fourth slot, increase basic attacks by 20% and ignore defensive bonuses. This is almost more of a defensive weapon in some ways that you would use in Onslaught, but I would want a windowless team on my Onslaught defensive team. I don't really see the usefulness of this weapon. The third slot, I'm pretty sure, can be crafted. The minus 40% defense is useful, but I would rather have an ability or an active skill, a rush, that can apply defense down to multiple enemies at once instead of just the singular. I'm also thinking that increased basic attack damage by 20% and ignoring defensive bonuses, that's more of an offensive weapon, and that would be on a toon that can make multiple attacks with their basic attack. So I'm thinking someone like James, for example, or Alpha even. And actually, now that I'm saying Alpha, I'm thinking this weapon could be decent on her if you change the first slot to say crit chance, or you could leave the HP, I guess. I'm just thinking if you have team player weapons around her and her active skill gives her, I think, plus 60 crit chance. So she's going to produce a critical hit almost every time. If you get her to rush, well, her adrenaline rush causes minus 50% defense down to all other enemies, excluding the one you're attacking. But if you're able to rush a toon and you apply defense down to them on the first turn, then you're applying higher amounts of damage on the second and third attack of her rush to that individual character. You also have that minus 50% defense down applied to everyone else, and let's say she's rushing and attacking a human shield that has a 50% defense bonus, because when they shield they get that defensive bonus for defending. Well, you're ignoring that and you're producing 20% more damage on that attack. So I guess in that sense the weapon could be decent. At the same time, I'm thinking like I favor the stun on attack with the 15% healing, because that 15% healing can go off each time Alpha makes an attack and it stacks. So if each time she produces that effect, she would get a 45% healing over 2 turns, which obviously helps against traders and stuff. Like, this weapon, I guess, is very niche, like meaning it'll fit really well on 1 or 2 characters, but overall it's not game-changing or game-breaking by any means. Overall, I think I would say this epic weapons cache is okay. Like, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. Again, I realize most people don't pull on the epic weapons cache for the weapon, but they pull on it for the armory tokens, because armory tokens are in such short supply and they're so valuable for crafting decent weapons. My main point with most of these videos is bringing to your attention when there are good weapons on the wheel, so when you should make a pull, because if you're part of that 1% and you do get a 5-star weapon, let's at least hope that it's going to be a good one instead of something that is so specific or redundant in some ways or nonsensical. Like, this last weapon, I would almost say is nonsensical, because you can craft this all pretty easily. You can craft something better, to be honest. Like the first weapon that I showcased, it is not craftable, which makes it valuable, but a lot of people do have wakasashis. I have like 3 of them already, so there wouldn't be much of a point for me to pull for that specific weapon. For the second weapon, it's something you can craft, 20% AP to self and 20% attack. A lot of players have already acquired this because they wanted to make a turn 1 rushing attack team or even a defensive team. And this last weapon, most people just haven't paid any mind to it for the reasons that I stated before. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. Let me know in the comment section below if you end up pulling on this epic weapons cache.